Hello and welcome to this review of Rare Collection 1 for Evercade. This is a 12-game cartridge comprising several 8-bit titles and an arcade release too. Inside the box you get the usual social tags and wallpaper card insert, as well as a full-colour booklet giving you basic controls and some info on Rare, who are one of the most beloved British developers of all time, starting out of course as Ultimate Play the Game, which is quite a strange name. There aren't any stickers or other extras in the box, so let's get straight to the games. We'll start off with an all-time classic, Jetpack. This was a ZX Spectrum game from Ultimate Play the Game, and it sees you moving your little spaceman around using his eponymous jetpack. You have one button for thrust and another to fire your laser. Your aim is to first rebuild your broken spaceship and then fill it with fuel while collecting bonus items and racking up a high score. Succeed and you move on to a new, very similar screen where you hunt for more fuel. For the time, the game was approximate to arcade quality, which was frankly amazing for an 8-bit home computer. Today, it's still playable thanks to its smooth motion and enjoyable physics, but it is a bit simplistic and scrappy by today's standards. Still good, especially on a smaller screen like the Evercade EXP or one of the Super Pockets. Next, we have another all-timer, Battletoads. This NES game is so advanced you could well be forgiven for thinking you're watching a Super Nintendo title as the intro plays. With really advanced graphical techniques like scaling, parallax scrolling, and some nice particle effects, its smooth movement means it's aged supremely well. The speeder bike section is still rock hard, but of course you now have the Evercade's save state functionality to help you get through the tougher levels if you so desire. It's still great, and you can tell Rare was really flexing its muscles and having fun with this one. Also on the cartridge is the arcade version of Battletoads, which wasn't received so well at the time. However, by today's standards, it's actually aged pretty well, at least in terms of its visuals, which are way more ambitious than before, with scaling techniques allowing you to literally kick butt into the next plane. The action is, however, rather crude and nasty, with toilet jokes and extreme violence on show, which make it feel very much a product of the 1990s that was aimed at enthralling teenagers, and boys at that. Still, the gameplay itself is reminiscent of Golden Axe, and is still enjoyable enough, though the colour palette is oddly dark, so it's not that attractive. Not a classic by any means, but it's nonetheless a fine addition to this collection. Changing tack, we have Cobra Triangle, which is a speedboat-based action game. I say action game because speed isn't even half of the aim here, as you can shoot rival boats, evade sharks and whirlpools, and even transport mines to a detonation zone while trying to avoid being tagged by an enemy craft. It runs well and the variety is welcome, but it is also pretty simple by today's standards and didn't hold my attention for very long, though I did enjoy what I played. It's also worth noting that the upgrade system doesn't really feel like it's changing the gameplay very much at all, and you don't appear to have control over it either, so progress just becomes about seeing what the next level holds. A competent game for sure, but not really worth writing home about. Wanted Gunfight Dead or Alive is a Wild West shooter that uses the same game engine as Night Law, which we'll come to shortly as that's also on this collection. The idea here is to hunt down and defeat criminals in quick draw shootouts. To do this, you must look for civilians who are pointing towards where the perp was last seen. You can speed things along by saddling up your horse Panto, which is a great joke because it's just a pantomime horse and you're still using your own legs to run, only running faster. Very cute. Annoyingly, contact with any of the civilians results in an insta-kill for you both, just leaving your hats on the floor, and these civilians are hard to avoid thanks to randomized movement. You can actually flip the camera view 180 degrees at will, which is surely one of the first instances of camera control in a game, and the saloon graphics are decent, albeit in a severely limited colour palette. Actually beating the criminal in a quick draw shootout is far easier said than done, but again you can use the Evercade's save state feature to at least get the hang of these before you start embarking on your own high score chase. The ambition and game engine are remarkable really for the time, but this does feel more like an ancient tech demo than a full game, though it does play okay today if you get into it. It's not worth buying the cart for though, that's for sure. RC Pro-Am is remembered fondly by a great many gamers, though having missed it myself in my youth, I'm finding it hard to fall in love with it now. Suffering from the same problem as Micro Machines, even though you've got a track map, not being able to see far enough ahead to see where the corners are makes it really difficult to navigate the tracks, so memorization is necessary. There are some nice features like boost pads and collectibles, as well as hazards like oil spills and storm clouds, but it doesn't have the charm or playability of the likes of Super Off-Road, which I covered on my Sega Sundays channel on Sega Game Gear. There are literally 1,000 racing games better than this, so even though it's fine, there's nothing really wrong with it. Again, it's just not worth buying the cartridge to play it, unless it's one of your childhood favourites, in which case I'm sincerely sorry for what I'm saying about it. It at least runs well. Moving swiftly on, we have Saberman's trilogy of games, starting with Saber Wolf. I did play this myself in about 1990, but at the time I couldn't get to grips with it, and to be honest, I'm still struggling now. The game is set in a lush, dense jungle, and as Saberman, you must fight jungle animals and creepy crawlies as you try to find 4 pieces of a treasure. Along the way, you can eat coloured flowers to trigger special effects like invulnerability or super speed, though these effects will be trial and error as the game deliberately doesn't tell you much at all, leaving you to discover how to play it all for yourself. When you're doing well, it is still undeniably excellent with its fast action, plentiful loot and colourful graphics, but the enemy spawning is incredibly frustrating as you're killed over and over again by things you could never have known were coming. It's a very bitty experience as a result, but persevere and you will at least have a decent time with it. I certainly did. Much more so than the next game, which is Underworld, also starring Saberman, but this is a more traditional platform game viewed from the side. Interestingly, you can't be killed by the enemies here, they simply knock you tumbling away. Big fools will make you lose a life, however, so you still need to avoid the enemies a lot of the time because they'll knock you down the gap. Pick up the weapon on the first screen and you can shoot them, and then the game becomes a strange platforming affair, more platforming than shooting, as you try to leap to unseen ledges in a manner even more frustrating than the likes of Dizzy. The graphics are simplistic, the enemies are annoying, and the gameplay, I feel, is a mess. I'm sorry to say I don't like this one at all. The third of the Saberman trilogy is Nightlaw, which has a fantastic reputation. It's another isometric adventure and the first to use the Filmation engine to allow graphics to pass in front of and behind each other without clashing, which was a revelation at the time, as the ZX Spectrum hardware wasn't supposed to be able to do such things. So this is really impressive. While the result is accordingly more assured than other Spectrum games, the game itself I find is a little bewildering, and even when you know what you're doing and how to play it, which will take a long while if you're not using a guide because again it's deliberately obtuse in its instructions, it's still very difficult to judge where things are in the pseudo 3D space. Everything's still displayed in actual 2D, much like Landstalker on the Mega Drive, so it's hard to know exactly how to line up your jumps. There is a complex adventure here if you're up for it, but you've got to really want to get into it because it's not user-friendly at all. Still, I do love the animation as you turn into a werewolf, and I'm sure that there is entertainment here for those who persevere. For me, it's just too clunky. Next is Conker's Pocket Tales, which was originally for the Game Boy Color, and I must say that the display of the colours from that console doesn't look so great on modern screens. It looked okay on the old LCDs back on the original Game Boy Color, but it doesn't look so great here. I think the game is a bit ugly. But what really surprised me is that this was the first game in the Conker series before Conker's Bad Fur Day on N64, and as a result, it's before Rare had decided to make it an adults-only game. So this is actually a family-friendly Conker game, so it really is just an adventure game starring a squirrel who's looking for party invitations and lost presents, which is really odd, so nothing like you might be expecting. As a result, it does feel rather primitive and doesn't have any edgy humour to keep you in, so I'm not a fan of this one. Attic Attack, however, is a lot more fun. One of the best games on ZX Spectrum, it actually inspired an old kids' TV show called Nightmare. This is a top-down action game that sees you fighting ghosts and monsters as you navigate a maze of rooms spread across different floors. Responsive, fast-paced, and with 3 different characters to choose from, each with unique abilities, this is incredibly advanced for its time. By today's standards, it is again very simplistic, but it's still got something. And I do really like this one, even though I didn't have it back in its own era, so I am judging it on its merits today. Pretty good show. Finally, Lunar Jetman is a sequel to Jetpack, though it doesn't have the same level of enjoyment as that game. You can get into a little lunar rover and trundle along, getting out of it to fix the deformable terrain, which is a really impressive touch, though the limited jetpack fuel and annoyingly angled enemy trajectories make this far more of a chore to play than Jetpack. So there we have it, 12 games with plenty of variety, and not only several all-time classics, but a few games that are still genuinely fun to play by today's standards. I would say Jetpack, both the Battletoads titles, Cobra Triangle, definitely Attic Attack, and Saber Wolf are the best games on here in the light of 2025, and I would only really avoid Conker's Pocket Tales, Lunar Jetman, and Underworld. It's not as exhaustive a collection as Rare Replay on Xbox One, though of course the Evercade hardware isn't quite able to run the likes of Grabbed by the Ghoulies, which is a pity because I love that game. Still, fans of Rare will definitely want to pick this up, and everyone will at least get a taste of what it was like gaming in the 1980s. I give the Rare Collection 1 cartridge from Blaze a decent 3 out of 5 stars. Not spectacular, but still a very solid offering. Well, that's all for this video. Please hit like and subscribe, and do check out my Evercade playlist for more Evercade reviews. I've also got my regular Let's Play series called Sega Sundays, where I play a different classic Sega game every Sunday from 8 AM UK time, and there are well over 50 games on that playlist already, so take a look at that. Take care until next time, I'll see you soon. Cheers.